Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. We're coming off of UFC 187 from this past weekend. We're going to be chatting about that card with John Ramdine and Robin Black, including a new light heavyweight champion being crowned. The middleweight title was defended on the card, and we got one of the best fights of the year in Las Vegas. Daniel Cormier was able to weather the storm of the opening round from Anthony Johnson before tiring out his opponent and using his wrestling to keep Johnson on the mat. With the two splitting the first two rounds, it was the fresher Cormier who put pressure on Johnson in the third round, taking his back and submitting Johnson to become the new UFC light heavyweight champion. Following the victory, Cormier sent out a message to Jon Jones and then engaged in a verbal back and forth with Ryan Bader at the post-fight press conference. It was a fight over a year in the making, and Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort finally met on Saturday night. Despite some moments of success for Belfort, including landing a strike that cut Weidman near his left eye, it was Weidman taking the fight to the ground and easily mounting the 38-year-old. And for the next 27 seconds, he was relentless with his ground and pound and would get the opening round stoppage. Weidman has now defended the title 3 times, and it appears that Luke Rockhold will be his next test. And heavyweights Andrei Arlovski and Travis Browne put on the best round we have seen this year with an incredible 4 minutes and 41 seconds of action that earned the two Fight of the Night honors. Arlovski was tagging Browne early, and he was clearly stunned from the power of Arlovski, but hung in and would eventually rock Arlovski himself with a right hand. Arlovski ended things with a right uppercut as Browne was out on his feet and the referee stepped in. Arlovski has won 5 straight fights and is 3-0 since returning to the UFC. And we look ahead to this Saturday. We will have a live pre-fight show coming your way at 7 p.m. Eastern Time ahead of the prelim fights from Brazil, where Carlos Condit will be taking on Thiago Alves in the night's welterweight main event. I'm here with Robin Black and John Ramdine. We took in UFC 187 on Saturday night. Lots to discuss because a lot of contenders, I feel, coming out of this particular event, as well as fights that make a lot of sense as well. Let's start at the top. Daniel Cormier becomes the new UFC light heavyweight champion, and it appears that Ryan Bader is next for him. But what did you think first of Daniel Cormier's performance, and conversely Anthony Johnson's?
I mean, I think we were talking about it all week long. It's like, who is it going to be? Is it going to be AJ? Is it going to be DC? We expected, because these guys are so evenly matched in certain areas, that we could see both guys winning. Anthony Johnson maybe get the first round, second round knockout, and DC grind it out over 5 rounds. But what we saw from Daniel Cormier
both.
Both. We got to see both. But Cormier, one of the toughest guys, just is able to push through bad positions. And even when he said that Johnson hit him harder than he's ever been hit, as soon as he went down, he was immediately back up. The thing about Daniel Cormier, he's unbreakable, and that's what's going to allow him to be champion.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful fight. Everything we wanted and everything we kind of expected, and more. There's one little thing that kind of sometimes will hang over, and that will be some guy on a couch somewhere saying that Anthony Johnson doesn't have cardio or is a quitter. It's like, look, you have to understand this is an Olympic-level wrestler who's currently weighing almost 230 pounds on your back, and you weigh almost 2. You got 460 pounds of being compressed and squashed and manhandled and controlled, and underneath all of that, fight with every desperate fiber of your being back to your feet. That's how Daniel Cormier won the fight. He won it by being that guy. He didn't win it because of something that Anthony Johnson did not have. Anthony Johnson was beaten by a better man. He said it, and it's true.
How about another shadow involving a guy sitting on a couch whose name is Jon Jones? I mean, is that going to be the talking point that we always have around Daniel Cormier? Because it's not like Jon Jones has retired. It's not like he's never coming back. I mean, this is the top 205-pound fighter in the world, and that is a fact. So until we see that fight, I mean, is there going to be that asterisk next to Daniel Cormier as light heavyweight champion?
Sure, there might be, but what happens if Jon Jones doesn't come back? You know, this is a pretty serious scenario, and I think fans can't be what happens? We got to see Jon Jones come back. Let Daniel Cormier do his thing. If Jon Jones comes back, Dana White has already said it. Jon Jones gets an immediate title shot upon his return to the UFC, but it doesn't matter. Daniel Cormier's job is to prove that he is the best fighter at 205 pounds. He's got to change everybody's memory, saying that, you know what, I was emotionally invested. If Jon Jones comes back, I'm going to smoke him, and then right now leave a trail of bodies in his wake.
Yeah, and you can say that all you want, and I won't necessarily buy it till I see it, and that's okay. Because Muhammad Ali missed many years of his prime. The greats, sometimes it's these variables that we don't have control over. In a perfect world, the best fighter fighters fight the best fighters, and we learn everything we need to know. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And Jon Jones may never be back. He faces some pretty serious legal and, by all accounts, personal problems that for a special athlete like Jon Jones, sometimes is the biggest challenge of them all.
Chris Weidman, a fantastic performance against Vitor Belfort. Did get hurt early, but ended up mounting Vitor Belfort, finishing it, just was relentless at the end. And this clears the way for a lot of big fights at middleweight. I mean, his next series of fights could all be just spectacular challenges that are going to define this guy's legacy. But let's look at Vitor Belfort at this stage of the game and just the changes we saw. It's been a year and a half since we saw him in action. It was a drastically different looking Vitor Belfort. And at 38 years of age, Robin, you threw out the question there of like, what is next for this guy? I don't think anyone knows. I don't even know if Vitor knows because he was kind of not committal to anything.
No, but Vitor's dealt with all this stuff in the past. I mean, he has been around for a long time. I'm sure there was a point that he didn't ever know if he was going to make money in mixed martial arts. Then it's on network TV, and their numbers are really high. Vitor's been making a lot of money for a long time. But you mentioned it, he probably should be fighting at 170 pounds. If you look at the start of Vitor Belfort's career, he was fighting guys that were close. John Hess was, I think, billed at 295 pounds from Team Quest. Scott Feroza was 350 pounds. Tank Abbott was 250 pounds. So Vitor Belfort was forced to face these massive dudes earlier in his career. And I know people are pointing the finger at him. Oh, he doesn't look this way. He's a cheater, this and that. Unfortunately, these are the things that he had to do, and he's still one of these guys that's around today.
He did have to do those things, but because he did them, he is now a cheater. He cannot fight medically because of his hypogonadism unless he finds some way to cheat. That's my last thought on Vitor because I want to talk about Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman's the best fighter in the world, in my opinion, right now. But I was going to say meet me at camera 3, Chris, but since we're already at camera 3, listen, man, that was the worst minute of your career. It really was, and it started at the weigh-ins when you got emotional. Chris Weidman, you are mentally the strongest man in fighting, and that was the key to all your wins before. You showed a little crack there at the weigh-ins, and as a result, you Kat Zingano did across the cage and ran over there and slipped. You've never done that before. Let's never do it again. You're the best fighter in the world, man.
Yeah, and you believe pound for pound maybe the best in the world because you look at the guys that he's faced since defeating Anderson Silva to become champion. You can do the things that you did to Lyoto Machida, Anderson Silva the second time, and now Vitor Belfort. I'm interested to know what happens when he fights Jacare Ray and Luke Rockhold.
Yeah. Final thought. We can't go on without talking about Andre Arlovski and Travis Brown. The best round of the year. This might be some people's fight of the year at the end of 2015. And suddenly Andre Arlovski, this guy could theoretically fight for the championship in his next fight.
Yeah, well, he could, but we got to see what happens between Kane and Verdum. And I think give Andre Arlovski either Stipe Miocic or Josh Barnett. That fight makes sense to me.
You just beat a young stud. Here's another. But that's the curse of winning, man. And that fight, they did absolutely everything wrong, and it was so beautiful. And that's the beautiful thing about fighting, is sometimes it's just about heart and desire.
All right. For Robin Black, John Ramdy, and I'm John Pollock. More of Fight News Now Extra is coming up next.